states that they're going to put that test equipment into. Right now into Bergen County, more details on that to come as we know more. It's a modest first step, but it's an important first step. And according to Tom, and he and his Abbott colleagues are going to continue to ramp up the ability to get that, that piece of equipment into as many hands as possible, or access as much as possible. So as I've said all along, it takes a village, and in this case I want to tip of the cap to Abbott Labs. Switching gears again to the topic of personal protective equipment, or PPE. Last night, and I'm going to ask Pat Callahan to say a few words about, before we go to Q&A, about both PPE and compliance or lack thereof. Last night we received a shipment of PPE, another one. This I think is now our 4th shipment out of FEMA. It consisted of more than 260,000 pieces, including masks and gloves. Again, deep appreciation. We are grateful for it. It by no means alleviates our need for more PPE, and we continue to work every single avenue to get more of our state, more for our state rather, and our frontline responders, and to also ensure that our community health personnel have what they need as well. Remember, this fight isn't just in our hospitals. This slide, I think we've got a slide, Mahan, that gives a quick glimpse into our current statewide PPE numbers. I'm hopeful that perhaps as early as tomorrow's briefing, I'll be able to give, along with Pat and team here, a greater accounting of our PPE supplies and how they fit into our current needs. Our work, both collectively and through Pat's efforts, is to ensure that we are distributing our PPE supplies as efficiently and effectively as possible. This is why we've put in place the daily reporting mandate for all of our health systems and hospitals, and why we're continuing to seek out every available piece of PPE and every available ventilator. Make no doubt we appreciate every single piece of PPE that we're receiving, whether it's from the federal government, the national stockpile, from the many donations, large and small, that we receive, or for our own purposes. But we need a lot more, and I'll continue to push our case with the White House, with FEMA, and with everyone I speak to. And as always, if you have PPE to donate, please let us know through this website, covid19.nj.gov/PPE donations. And Colonel Callahan and his team will connect with you to take that off your hands. And it's not just PPE. We have also desperately mentioned many times that we need more ventilators. And I noted yesterday, we continue to pursue every avenue on that front. The 300 ventilators from the strategic stockpile that we referred to yesterday have arrived, and they're being tested as we speak. So far, so good. And George Helmy, my chief of staff, and I have each been on at the highest levels of the White House this morning, reiterating and underscoring, particularly with another 69 fatalities, the need for more ventilators. This is as good a spot as any to say that I mentioned it takes a village. I mentioned Tom Evers at Abbott Labs.
You put rice, Mama?
An incredibly powerful conversation yesterday with a guy who we've been in regular touch with, and that's Alex Gorski, the CEO of Johnson & Johnson, one of our iconic corporate citizens. Alex,
I love you.
I wanted to reiterate my thanks for the 10,000 goggles that they had contributed, an enormous amount of money. They're allowing their scientists and researchers to take, I forget what the sabbatical period is, but to go into hot spots and actually work at the front lines. You may have seen that they are working aggressively on a vaccine. Now, there are many working on a vaccine, but there are a few out there, and I mean out there anywhere in the world, never mind New Jersey or America, who can realistically hope to achieve the scale, and that's the key here, the scale of production. Alex and I also talked through sort of the likelihood of how this plays out in terms of the sequencing of, as we've said all along, we've got to break the back of the coronavirus first and meaningfully reduce the cases if not act towards zero, then begin to responsibly reopen our economy and society. He and I talked about, again, I'm operating above my pay grade with my two colleagues to the right, but talked about the likelihood of therapeutics, drugs that can treat the symptoms becoming much more broadly available in his judgment. I don't want to put words in his mouth, but sort of, if you look at sort of back to school time frame, and then a vaccine that, that they are literally out testing, retesting, making sure it's safe and efficacious, and then the ability, whether it's them or whoever, but obviously they are as big a dog on the hunt as any, to have vaccines at scale, God willing, by perhaps as early as spring of 2021. We have no bigger player in the healthcare space in the state than Johnson & Johnson, none with a deeper heritage. And again, to all the, I mentioned in the past week, Merck and so many other of the big companies that are proud to call New Jersey home. We wear their presence here as a badge of honor. They are all diving in like never before, proving that it not just takes a village in words, but in action. So hats off to each of them. And as I say, in particular, that conversation with Alex was particularly powerful and enlightening. Allow me to switch gears again. On Saturday, I mentioned that we were close to having 100% compliance from municipal water companies voluntarily halting all service shutoffs throughout this emergency. I'm proud to report that we now have that 100% compliance statewide. Between both municipal and private sector water utilities, no New Jerseyan should fear losing their access to clean water. And I thank everyone for their cooperation. I know Catherine's going to touch on this as well. Switching gears again from the Attorney General's office, I want to amplify the announcement made yesterday that we will crack down on any physician or pharmacist or anybody else hoarding certain prescription drugs or inappropriately prescribing them to friends and family. As we have read in the news, certain drugs are
he's not protesting.
in treating COVID-19. I mentioned
You're patronizing.
we must start now to protect.
You're patronizing a corporation. You're supposed to protest with them by not using it.
These are fields filled with good actors, but
No, I'm not saying don't use it. I'm just saying.
Department of Labor, again, switching again, we cannot.
I thought they were in protest.
To keep your workers on payroll throughout
No
this
hate.
crisis and allow them to benefit from the expanded paid sick and family leave programs made possible by the recent.
Two new hospital facilities are coming online in New York now. The hospital ship, the USNS Comfort, which is now
dollar for dollar payroll tax credit.
two new hospital facilities are coming online in New York now. The hospital ship, the USNS Comfort, which is now pulled into New York Harbor and will not take coronavirus patients. It will take other patients so that hospitals can keep coronavirus patients themselves and put non-COVID-19 patients on this ship. Same deal with the Javits Center, the huge Manhattan Conference Center, which has now been set up which has now had set up within it 4 250-bed field hospitals. The Javits Center became operational today, but again, it is not supposed to be taking coronavirus cases. That may be a contested matter today. Two new hospital facilities.
Question, Lana. What is your opinion on this? Lana. Question. All right. So the boat, my opinion is I'm not too concerned, but like the boat that just arrived to New York yesterday, right? Oh. Shut up! Shut the fuck up! Come here, asshole. Come here, sir. Come here. Hey, mind your business. No, but the boat is only taking patients that are for like general problems, not correlated with the virus, because they want to diminish the stress to regular hospitals, because they also got to deal with regular patients, and some people are getting sick in hospitals because there's no division, so they're only taking regular cases. They're not taking coronavirus. So But then I think, yeah, it sounds extreme, right? But then, like, let's say it gives it like if you have a cancer problem or anything correlated, you go there, right? You go to the boat. It might be harder for the person that has regular, but like let's say you have coronavirus and you actually need a local hospital instead of going far away to the boat, right? Now your local hospital is within reach of a ER, and then you could go to the hospital right away, and they can use the facility right away for you. Compared of if they don't know what your cause is, they could start with something else, liver problems, and then or pancreatics or like kidney stones, and then they find out then this nigga's sick. Now you could have potentially got somebody sick yourself, right? So is it bad that they're doing that? That like they're not taking like patients, or you think that it should just be for coronavirus patients? Because there's two problems for the hospitals.
Is it possible to distribute among several hospitals? Florida is not the only coastal state.
I'm not talking about Florida. I'm talking about New York. I'm talking about the boat that went to New York. I'm not talking about your cruises. Cruises is out of place.
Oh, you're talking about the boat in New York.
The military boat. Oh my God, you're so lost.
Assisting their fellow residents.
The military boat that just arrived to New York.
To our state.
No, I think they're under a thing, they separate it. So
Yeah, like
mine and
so I don't know why people are making a big deal. Like I think there's some fake ass outrage right now going on with liberals.
Are coming online in New York now. Two new hospital facilities are coming online in New York.
Learning environment in which we're all living. As usual, we have the best educators in America, if not the world, and they are stepping up, in this case, from home, in most cases, and walking our kids through the most unusual time in any of their educational lives. And again, in general, I cannot thank enough the millions and millions more residents who are staying at home and doing their extraordinary part to flatten the curve. We take our hat off to you. Overwhelmingly, folks are doing the right thing.
Harbor and will not take coronavirus patients. It will take other patients so that hospitals can keep coronavirus patients themselves and put non-COVID-19 patients on the ship. Same deal with the Javits Center, the huge Manhattan Conference Center, which has now been set up, which is now...
By the way, you should know that we read practically everything you are sending us. I don't personally read it, I read a lot of it. I promise you, we are reading it. We understand and completely appreciate the anxiety that so many of you feel. But I've said this before, and I'll say it as explicitly as I can. Leave the worrying to me. Leave it to us up here on this team. Our job is to lessen your anxiety, to be straight with you, to tell you the facts, and to give you some sense of where we're headed. We're doing all that we can to ensure the safety of our 9 million member New Jersey family. We're doing all that we can to make sure that we don't just get through this, but that we get through this stronger than ever before. We take your worries and your concerns to heart, and frankly, they educate our decisions just as much as we rely on the facts and the science. We're in this together. We will get through this together, and we will move forward together. I'd like to say it is going to be tomorrow. I'd like to say that we'll come through this unscathed. We've already lost 267 precious lives. I don't want anyone ever to look back on this day, March 31st, or any other day, and say you didn't warn us where this was headed. The numbers of positive cases will continue to rise. Sadly, so will the fatalities. But at some point, God willing, sooner than later, we will break the back of this damn virus. We will flatten that curve. We will have gotten the capacity in our healthcare system sufficient enough to deal with the cases that we have, and we will begin slowly but surely together, never having turned on each other, as one extraordinary, diverse New Jersey family. Slowly but surely, we will get back on our feet, and we will be stronger than ever before. With that, please help me welcome the person who needs no introduction, the Commissioner of the Department of Health, Judy Persichel. Judy?
Thank you, Governor. Well, good afternoon. As I've shared in the past, we continue to be most concerned about our long-term care facilities who care for the most vulnerable population. Currently, 81 of our 375 long-term care facilities have reported at least one COVID-19 positive resident. Yesterday, the department issued updated guidance to these facilities that directs them to implement universal masking of all staff and anyone entering the facility. We are taking this step to reduce the risk of illness being introduced into the facilities. Also, all symptomatic facility residents, those who are showing respiratory virus symptoms, should be masked while staff is providing direct care. Concerning the readmission of their residents back into their facilities and acceptance of new residents, our guidance outlines methods facilities should use to return or admit patients safely into their facilities. In addition to monitoring them for symptoms, facilities must create separate wings, units or floors to accept asymptomatic residents coming into or returning from the hospital. This may mean moving residents in the facility to create a new wing or a new unit. They must limit the
staff working between the wings or units as much as possible to avoid spread of the virus. They must create a separate wing or unit to accept COVID-19 positive residents, and they must care for those suspected or confirmed with COVID-19 in a cohort. When a facility receives information from its local health agency that a resident of the facility or a facility staff member has tested positive for COVID-19, the facility should follow the guidance provided by the local health agency to implement all actions necessary to protect the health and well-being of its residents and staff. Together, these two steps, universal masking and appropriately separating residents returning to the facility, will help facilities reduce the risk of exposure of the virus. Today, I will be on a call with the operators of all of our long-term care facilities to emphasize this guidance and to give them guidance if they cannot, because of the physical plant, abide by our instructions. As the governor mentioned, we're reporting 2,196 new cases for a total of 18,696 cases in the state. And sadly, 69 new deaths have been reported. We have total fatalities in the state of 267. Of the total, 55% are male, 45% are female. 3 individuals, or 1%, were less than 30 years of age. 12 percent were between the ages of 30 and 49. 46 or 17% between the ages of 50 and 64, and 80 or 30% between the ages of 65 and 79. 126 or 47% are over the age of 80. According to our records right now, and many are still under investigation, 42% had underlying conditions: obesity, hypertension, diabetes mellitus, heart disease, and pulmonary disease. 58% are still under investigation for their full medical histories. 19% or 52 individuals were associated with long-term care facilities. Of the breakdown of the new cases, Atlantic County saw 2, Bergen 235, Burlington 21, Camden 29, Cape May 3, Cumberland 7, Essex 237, Gloucester 25, Hudson 183, Hunterdon 13, Mercer 12, Middlesex 119, Monmouth 99, Morris 65, Ocean 46, Passaic 73, Salem 9, Somerset 40, Sussex 15, Union 111, Warren 8, and we are still gathering more details on 844 of these new cases. With over 95% of laboratories reporting, we have performed 44,330 tests, of which 17,253 have tested positive, for an overall positivity rate of 38.92%. The mass testing sites of Bergen and Monmouth have tested 2,593 individuals, with 1,052, remember they're all symptomatics, all of our tests are symptomatic individuals, 1,052 testing positive, for a positivity rate of 41.05%. I'm also reporting today that New Jersey State Psychiatric Hospital, another one has been affected. Ann Klein Forensic Center has one resident who tested positive for COVID-19. Again, we are being extremely vigilant to all residents and facilities in New Jersey, especially the most vulnerable, those within mental health facilities, long-term care facilities,
Yo, what's
pediatric
good?
care facilities, state and
Trabajando.
county jails. I know this continues
Oh,
to be
okay.
a stressful time for New Jersey.
Hay 72 casos en
Crisis,
Pasay.
the governor has shared. We all
72 casos positivos en Pasay.
So I would like to again reach out, talk to your family and friends, especially the elderly.
No, pero yo te estoy diciendo, yo te estoy diciendo en tu ciudad, porque recién están haciendo. Pero eso es New Jersey. En New Jersey ya se han muerto bastantes. Déjame ver. No. ¿Será? Porque él tiene diabetes, ¿sí o no? El diabetes le afecta. Oh, snap. ¿Y qué? ¿Ha ido al hospital o está en...? Todavía no se sabe. Mira, bueno, mira, en New Jersey, let me show you. En New Jersey hay 16,000 casos positivos. Hay 196 muertes. Hay 196 muertes, loco. Yo te dejo para que trabaje. Oh, ok, parcero. Yeah, I just spoke to a friend of mine that he's currently in New Jersey. I was telling him that there's 72 cases currently in the state in Passaic City. So, but he's working in his basement, so that's good that he's at home in a sense. But this is getting serious. The more testing we do, the better. But the more testing we do, the more we see that more people are sick. So that's the other bad thing about testing. Like, wow, man. In the United States, we currently have 165,000 cases, and we have 3,155 deaths. We got more than double than what China has as total cases. Maybe we're not China. Maybe we're pretty bad at this controlling things. Deaths 3,155, recovered 4,833, and unresolved 158,006 cases. New York is currently leading with 67,298 cases on 1,342 deaths, 1.99 rate. So the rate went up a bit, but there was no new deaths, so that's a good thing. New Jersey has 16,636 cases and zero new cases. Let me move this. Okay. California has 7,426 cases and 140 new cases. Oh, let me go back to what we were here for. Oh, shout outs to everybody that was listening to the last two podcasts the last two podcasts and the last two live streams that I did. The first one, I believe, I was talking about. Well, the last one before this one was we were listening to Andrew Cuomo, the governor of New York. And what was the other one? Let me see. What's the name? Give me a second. Because I know I'm in between live streams. I've been going in live streams of different names of live streams. So I'm just trying to build content. So let's just see. It says here that an hour ago, almost an hour ago, we had the ABBA Comedian Podcast Q&R News Worldwide Death Toll. So we just had the regular Q&R News getting updated with the numbers. Then we had the Andrew Cuomo live briefings that we stopped 19 minutes ago. On the first one that I mentioned, the ABBA Comedian Podcast, we had 286 viewers. So shout outs to y'all. And because I'm cloud chasing right here, I'm cloud chasing to the third level. 19 minutes ago, we also had another one that we closed, Andrew Cuomo live briefing, ABBA Comedian Podcast, Q&R News. And we had 460 viewers. Shout outs to y'all. And now we have another one. So now we're going to get back to the topic. The topic of this one, we're going to try to investigate, try to see more information about Russian leader Vladimir Putin. Could be possible for... Could be possibly be like sick with coronavirus and he don't know it, because on Wednesday he was seen shaking hands with Russian hospital chief, and now the hospital chief basically declared that, hey, look, I'm sick. And you know, part of Vladimir Putin's propaganda is always being around the people, always ensuring the people that like basically like he has their back. So part of that is a misinformation campaign, and obviously shaking everybody's hand to try to seem likable. He goes to, I think the president of Mexico did that yesterday. The president of Mexico is spending money on a new road. So there was this lady that some people say that he didn't know. They were just like, there's just 94-year-old lady, she want to shake your hand. And it came out to be that was El Chapo's mom. El Chapo's mom is 94 years old. And the Mexican president, AMLO, López Obrador. Before we go to so here's a video of allegedly, it says Mexican President Andrés Manuel López Obrador visited Badriago, Sinaloa, the homeland of Chapo Guzman and several other drug dealers coincidentally on Ovidio Guzman's birthday. He shook hands with Chapo's mom and said that he received her letter. So Mexican president is very unpopular with the rich people, with the people from the Mexican capital, but he's very popular with the indigenous people, with the farmers that depend on the coca industry. You know, a lot of these farmers could be able to sell coca, not the coca like the cocaine, but mostly like the plant. The plant is medicinal in that part of the country. It's just the production of trafficking is the problem, and most of the trafficking in Mexico doesn't come from, actually comes from Colombia. So right here says, lo esperado. AMLO minimiza su extraño saludo a la madre del Chapo Guzmán. No solo fue eso, conversó con el abogado del narcotraficante y estaba presente Aurelio Guzmán, lo era, hermano mayor del Chapo, cabecilla del cartel de Sinaloa, que ordenó arresto. So not only did he shake her hand, but El Chapo's brother, Aureliano Guzman, was there, and he has an order of capture in the United States. So I think that these are the type of things that, like, you know,
De lo que sucedió hace algunos meses con el operativo en el que pues se dejó, se liberó a Ovidio, y la cuestión de lo que hablaban del cumpleaños. ¿Qué responde? ¿Cuál es la postura? Sobre todo porque cuestionan que el jefe del Ejecutivo Federal no sería como lo más correcto que tuviera tal vez ese tipo de actitud.
So yeah, let's go back to President Vladimir Putin's possibility of being sick with the coronavirus. A doctor who gave Russian President Vladimir Putin a tour of a Moscow hospital treating coronavirus patients while neither man was wearing protective gear during a shot was tested positive for the illness. Yes, I have tested positive for coronavirus, but I feel pretty good. I've isolated myself in my office. I think the immunity I've developed this month is doing its job. Dr. Dennis Procesco, 44, wrote Sunday. Baby, is there any drink? What type of drink you got? Juice? Oh, amazing. Putin may have, Putin's man responsible. Putin, who visited the Komurnaka hospital in March and spoke with Procesco and directors, was being regularly tested for COVID-19, according to Kremlin. Everything is okay, said. The Kremlin said the Russian strongman wore a hazmat suit and a respirator during his visit to the hospital, but he did not have his protective gear on during his meeting with Procesco, with whom he shook hands. Procesco, who has been the face of Moscow battles with coronavirus for many Russians, warned Putin that Russia should brace for the illness like it has in Italy. On Tuesday, Russia reported 27% spike in coronavirus infections overnight, bringing the total to 2,337. Thank you, babe. The Kremlin on Friday reported coronavirus cases in Putin administration. Oh man, this is so sad. Breaking news. 14-year-old Portuguese boy becomes Europe's youngest coronavirus victim. This girl is literally doing
he told you what
exercises.
Moving on to the midsection. So what can happen
On
when you're
MSNBC.
sitting is this gets really slouchy and your low back can start to hurt and your abs, your stomach just like sticks out here. So what I want you to do is wherever you are, wherever you're working, I want you to act like someone's punching you in the stomach. Can you see that? So someone just punched you in the stomach here. So what you can do is you can do these crunches. I know it looks weird, but just do this while you're laying down or sitting. Excuse me.
I'm doing it.
So just do these little crunches or these contractions here with your low abs. Something else that you can do, if you really want to step it up, is you can sit on the edge of your chair and lean back, pull your abs in tight, and then just do little toe taps here. So I'm going to turn this side a little more so you can see. So abs in, I'm lifting my feet up off the ground and I'm doing these little toe taps. And I'm making sure that my abs stay in tight. So basically we're stretching the upper body, we're strengthening the middle of the body by either doing those crunches I was showing you, those pulses, or these toe taps. and then we're gonna stretch the lower body. So I'm gonna stand up here. You're not gonna be able to see my upper body, but that's okay. I just want you to stand up and
Damn, why she out here showing her butt like that?
that you're sitting on. And what you're gonna do is put your leg up, flex your foot, and lean forward. So this is stretching the back of the leg, the hamstring, the calf, and even the Achilles tendon a little bit here. And we're really doing this we're sitting for so long, your knees are bent. This area back here is constricted and contracted. So we're extending it and leaning forward to stretch the back of the leg. So I'm going to do the other one so that I'm even. So you want to flex this foot here, you can see, and then slowly lean forward. And I have my hands on my thighs to press my thighs down and lean forward here. And then just take a few breaths. Now,
this is good.
I don't mean to scare you, but this would be great if you could do every hour while you're working from home. I know it sounds a little bit crazy, but if you can do that, you're not only going to have better posture and combat that work from home poor posture, but you're also going to strengthen your body. We're strengthening the abs, we're allowing the backs of the legs to elongate and open up, and we're also working the upper back as we open the chest here. So if you want a bonus, 2 for 1, bring the shoulders back and pull the abs in at the same time.
This morning, a war is raging inside the U.S. epicenter of COVID-19. New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut now topping 85,000 confirmed cases and more than 1,400 deaths.
To me, we're beyond staggering already.
New York Governor Andrew Cuomo is now pleading for healthcare workers around the country to come help.
This is a war.
The Pentagon announcing a New Jersey National Guardsman is now among the dead, while this disturbing video appears to show a body being lifted onto a refrigerated truck outside a hospital in Brooklyn, a grim reminder of what's at stake. But help is arriving. The naval hospital ship, the USNS Comfort, a breathtaking sight next to the Statue of Liberty, even though some onlookers taking it in failed to properly social distance. The 1,000 overflow beds inside are meant to relieve pressure from the strained hospital system on land.
And this is the most significant and most important mission I've ever been on in my entire life.
This emergency field hospital in iconic Central Park is set to open today, and now the city plans to build a 350-bed facility at this tennis stadium in Queens, on the campus where the US Open is played.
At this point, we assume at least half of all New Yorkers will contract this disease.
But despite assurances by the state and federal government that there's enough personal protective equipment, or PPE, at least for the short term, doctors and nurses on the front lines insist there are spot shortages.
We try to make the best out of very little, and I worry that it's too late for some of us.
Calvin's son is an ER doctor at several hospitals in New York. He says he's having to intubate his own nurses and knows fellow doctors who are on life support.
Every day we wake up, even I do, feeling my peg if I have a fever, as if like a soldier we're waking up every day to see getting shot.
The last time this Navy hospital ship was here in the city was nearly 20 years ago in the aftermath of the 9/11 attacks. On a more hopeful note, Governor Cuomo says that while the number of hospitalizations here in New York continues to climb, the rate of hospitalizations, it's increasing at a slightly lower rate. So that's perhaps some good news, but right now authorities are analyzing that to see when we might reach that peak.
Overnight, the U.S. reached a grim milestone. More than 3,000 now dead because of coronavirus. President Trump now focusing on the lives that could be saved.
We could save more than 1 million Americans.
appearing to downplay that concern, saying he had not heard about testing in weeks, and that the U.S. had tested more people than any other country. It all comes as Dr. Anthony Fauci says the coronavirus will likely be cyclical, with a potential return in the fall.
What we're going through now is going to be more than just lessons learned. It's going to be things that we have available to us that we did not have before.
Yeah, the hope is that by the fall we'll be further along and have improved testing. Maybe even antiviral treatments will be further along, and vaccine trials, if they are showing promise, they might be able to be used in an emergency situation. Again, we're talking about the fall. As for the current travel restrictions, which are set to expire in just a few weeks, the president is suggesting some of those could also be extended.
And joining us now to talk more about his city's response to this outbreak is New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio. Mr. Mayor, good morning. It's good to see you.
Good morning.
You've said quite bluntly that the worst is yet to come for New York City and New York State. Can you take us behind the data that leads you to that conclusion?
Savannah, the data is what we're looking at all the time, making our decisions based on, but Savannah, obviously it means human lives, over 900 lives already lost in New York City. And what we're seeing is a sharp upturn over the last days, certainly the last few weeks. We have to look at this pattern and conclude that the worst is certainly in the next few weeks minimum. I could see it going into May, in fact, with the numbers we're looking at, because we have community spread. And that's really the issue. It's deeply seated in our communities, and we're going to see this all over the country, unfortunately.
It just has this feel of, it's not the calm before the storm, but, you feel that this is all about to really hit in a huge way when you see something like the U.S. Navy ship Comfort docking off the west side of Manhattan. You see a makeshift field hospital going up in Central Park. Right now, they're empty, but is your expectation that these hospitals will have to be filled with overflow patients because the other hospitals are filled with COVID-19 patients?
Yeah, let me give you the projection, and it's very blunt, Savannah. We have about 20,000 hospital beds in all of New York City. That's where we were, say, at the beginning of this month, normal times. We project the potential that all of those beds, all 20,000, will have to be turned into intensive care beds to focus on COVID-19 patients who are really, really sick. That gives you a sense of just how abnormal it could be. Now, I hope the projections don't come true, but we have to, as Dr. Fauci says, you have to plan for the worst. The projection has it getting worse over the next few weeks, potentially extending well into May. And we'll require a level of hospital capacity we've never seen, we've never even conceived of. We're talking about tripling hospital capacity to be able to handle it.
And Mr. Mayor, correct me if I'm wrong, the last I heard, in New York, you cannot get a COVID-19 test unless you are so sick you have to be in the hospital. So when I read the latest ones I have, say 67,000 cases in New York, doesn't that dramatically undercount the number of people who are sick?
Savannah, absolutely. And community spread, this is what people all over the country have to really feel in their bones. Community spread means it's out there and it continues to grow. And there's a point where it stops, like every other seasonal disease. There is an end point here. But for the weeks ahead, let's not kid ourselves. It gets a lot worse before it gets better.
Can we talk about this issue of testing? I just mentioned that in New York, in order to conserve testing capacity, if only the hospitalized are getting these tests. The president was on a call with governors yesterday. He was, one of the governors from Montana mentioned that state's need for tests. He said he hadn't heard about testing in a few weeks. Is testing still an issue here in New York?
Testing at this point, if testing had come earlier, I asked for testing from the federal government originally on January 24th. If we had gotten it in January, in February, beginning of February, we could have gotten ahead of this. I think there are still states where they can, and getting them testing is crucial. What it means now is it's a way we determine who needs the most immediate urgent care. It's a way we help to protect our first responders and decide, of course, who needs to go and be isolated. But I think the fact is testing is going to play a different role now if we could get rapid testing on a truly universal level. That could help us a lot. That could help us immediately tell people what they have to do.
Yeah, and
the best kind of testing is the testing early before you get an outbreak. Some states could still benefit from that.
Couple quick things. I mentioned the U.S. Navy ship has now come to Manhattan. I'm sure you saw these sites yesterday where many people wanted to get a glimpse, and some of the images indicated that people weren't really keeping that social distance as they crammed in to get a shot. What's your message to folks who may have done that here in our city?
Yeah, that's unacceptable. Savannah, look, we all feel a lot emotionally about the arrival of the Comfort. It's giving us so much hope that our military is here, and we're going to need a lot more military presence. We're going to need a lot more help from the federal government, including medical personnel from the military, very, very quickly. I've told that to President Trump. We need folks by Sunday, starting this Sunday, to get ahead of that horrible onslaught we expect in the next week.
That was not the question they asked you.
As much as we love the
people are being dumbasses.
Here, people must practice social distancing, and I've authorized our police to start giving out fines, $250, $500 fines, to people who don't get it, because at this point, we've said it, we've educated, we've given people the message. Anyone who's not social distancing at this point actually is putting other people in danger, and if we have to give them fines, we will.
All right, New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio, thank you for your time, sir, this morning. We really appreciate it.
While doctors are being overwhelmed by COVID-19 each day, they're also learning more about the virus. Now, to find out for more on that, we're turning to NBC medical correspondent Dr. John Torres. Dr. John, good to see you. So we're going to begin with this thing we're calling the Great Mask Debate. The president said yesterday that he could actually see a scenario where every American maybe should be wearing a mask, but that's really contrary to what the CDC said, because we've been saying for weeks on this show and many shows, like, not really necessary. So what's the right answer here?
And Hunter, you're right, this is the great mask debate, because it actually started this weekend with a doctor tweeting out that the CDC was going to change their guidelines and say people should be wearing them when they're out and about. I talked with the CDC yesterday. They said they have no plans to change their guidelines. Their guidelines are still what they've recommended, that people in the general public shouldn't be wearing them. A lot of experts are saying, yeah, it might help out a little bit. Why don't we wear them? Well, the truth is, it actually might help out a little bit, but here's the caveats behind that. People have to wear them constantly. They have to wear them correctly, and they always forget, too, that their eyes are another way the virus can get in. So without eye shields, they're not getting all the protection they need to get. It might give them a false sense of security, so they might get inside that 6-foot bubble that we're putting around ourselves to keep away from the virus.
Okay, so a sports-mad Portuguese boy is believed to be Europe's youngest coronavirus victim after his death at just 14. Vitor Godinho died early Sunday after being raised to São Sebastião Hospital the previous day and testing positive for COVID-19, according to a local newspaper. The King's soccer player suffered from psoriasis, a skin disorder that can affect the immune system, but was otherwise healthy with no underlying health condition. Vitor's death will make him the youngest known victim of coronavirus pandemic in Europe. A 16-year-old French schoolgirl, known only as Julie A., was previously being the youngest after her death. Fernando Gomes, president of the Portuguese Football Federation, announced his profound consternation. Crazy. Scientists suggest social distancing of 6 feet is not nearly enough.
you have a garden, you know weeds are low-down little scoundrels. Draw the line with Roundup. The Sure Shot wand extends with a protective shield to target weeds precisely and kill them right down to the root. Roundup brand, trusted for over 20 years.
Meal every night, not necessary. This is a Thanksgiving every day.
So it says here, social distancing guidelines to stay 6 feet from others may have woefully inadequate. I hear how to say that word. Inadequate. One scientist warns, saying the coronavirus can travel 20 feet. Can you hear this, Lana?
Yep.
20 feet and linger for hours. This is ridiculous. MIT Associate Professor Lydia Baruba, who has researched the dynamics of coughs and sneezes for years, warns MIT's Associate Professor Lydia Baruba, who has researched the dynamics of coughs and sneezes for years, warns newly published research that the current guidelines are based on outdated models from the 1930s, rather than the assumed safety of 6 feet. Baruba Her research, published in the Journal of American Medical Association, also warns that droplets that settle along the trajectory can contaminate surfaces, and residue of doublet nucleus may stay suspended in the air for hours. But notes a 2020 report from China that showed the virus particles
Cameron? Okay. We'll go to Nikita, Elise, and then John.
So I'll apologize like I did before because I've an obscene amount of questions again. But I'll start. Do you have a timeline for the June elections? And then are you close to a decision on whether you're going to take those to all vote by mail? And then since the Division of Elections is quarantining paper petitions, do you plan to extend the amount of days that candidates have to file a challenge, bracketing letters? And it also seems like you've been a little bit less willing to criticize the president recently. Is there any concern on your part that doing so would endanger federal aid to New Jersey? And has the administration identified any other issues that would require legislative action? And if so, what are they? And have you ruled out calling the legislature in for another remote session?
Our administration?
Yes.
Okay. Does the same list go on or is it okay? No closer on the June elections. I say this with respect because we respect each and every one of you. I think we thought after the last time you asked the question about our timeline, we have a very different timeline on when to make the decision of the June elections, but we've got nothing new on that. I missed the second part. Divisional elections are quarantining something or?
Quarantining petitions for 24 hours. The petitions that were handed in person, they're just sitting in a room to, shed any viruses or whatever they may have. But given that not everyone's petitions have been checked as of yesterday, so the candidates essentially have less time to file challenges.
Got it. I don't have a crisp answer for you, but I know Matt Plackett is more likely to have one.
State as of now doesn't see a reason to change that deadline. They're actively working with the campaigns. They feel confident that they can count the ballots, or count the petitions rather, and they're also working with the county clerks on that side.
Let me address the president, which has come up a couple of times. Again, I've said this before, and
it's just a fact, and I would hope that the folks in the 9 million members of our family would appreciate this. I don't get to wake up in the morning and pick who's in what position in the country. And the President of the United States is Donald Trump, and the Vice President is Pence, and there's one federal administration. And if we're going to get through this crisis sooner than later, with a lower curve, with fewer fatalities, please God, and casualties in terms of sickness, it will be because we found, among other things, a lot of it will be due to what we do in this state, including the personal behavior of all of us, but a lot of it will also relate to how much common ground we can find with the administration. And so it has nothing to do with what I think a given person wants to hear. It is substantive, deeply substantive. And I would just say, so he's a Republican, I'm a Democrat, and just as similarly, I was on the phone twice yesterday with Speaker Pelosi, talking about what elements we would like to see in the next stimulus bill. I was on, George Helmy and I were on at very high levels this morning with the administration. We will do what it takes to save as many lives as we can save in New Jersey. We will deal with everybody and anybody. And there's no price too high, political or otherwise, that we will pay in order to save as many lives and keep the amount of folks who are sick in the state as low as possible. As it relates to our administration and the legislature, we had a good conversation this morning as it relates to things like the budget, tax deadlines. I hope that we're going to have news to report on that sooner than later, given that tomorrow is April 1st in particular. I don't know that there's, beyond dealing with the budget season and the tax reporting time frame, those are the top two items. I think, Matt, it's fair to say that that's what we talked about this morning. Beyond that, I would have nothing else that they've been really good, I have to say, about, I'll give you one example, which is a few days old. They've been really good about making sure that we had a law in place where you couldn't foreclose on somebody, you couldn't evict somebody, just to pick one example. So I want to take my hat off to the Senate President, the Speaker, as well as the minority leaders in both chambers. This has been an overwhelmingly bipartisan, and thank all of them for that. Thank you. Elise.
My first question is from Daniel Munoz from MJ Biz. Are you considering the sort of construction ban that New York has put in place in the next couple days? Are you reconsidering New Jersey's rules on that? And if so, are you likely to go less or more restrictive? And then the rest of the questions are mine. There's a $680 million pension payment due today, the quarterly payment. I'm wondering if you're going to make it, and if so, what's your guidance on cash flow over the next several weeks and months? And earlier you mentioned out-of-state restrictions.
Is there more juice?
Restrictions on residents who come from out of state.
Give me an ice.
As restrictive as those in Texas and Florida.
It's so good if you put a little bit of lemon. It's so good.
Oh yeah, that was a good idea.
Daniel, the answer is we're holding where we are in construction.
It's definitely good to hear. You always want to hear the voices of our
house as well. That's what we're looking at. New York did tweak.
When it comes to these guys, with all this, so he's doing the best he can. And they're getting underway. We gotta build the wall. We have no choice. This is an emergency. There is 0 hours left to take action. This is the perfect time to graduate.
These are the coastal voters who, more than anything, want these candidates to cut to the chase.
It's too early to say anything about what I mentioned that would be down the road, both in terms of how...
ABC News with Lester Holt, covering coronavirus with facts over fear.
How do we know we're in isolation? Shouldn't we be conscious? I expect more times today.
At a time of national crisis, turn to the most trusted TV news anchor in America. Need your true crime fix on the go? Deadline episodes are available as podcasts. Mysteries with a twist from the True Crime Original. Wow. Listen to Deadline wherever you get your podcasts.
You're watching NBC News Now. We've got some breaking news. This is part of the Hot Water.
More to the talk.
It's news made for your streaming world. Live weekdays, 3 to 11 p.m. Eastern.
Flattened yet, and we will do this. Let there be no doubt about it, and I hope sooner than later. But when we do this, when the numbers of that back half of that curve begins to come way down, I would like some Judy and Ed say, you know what, you're getting into a place where you can responsibly begin to shed some more daylight in the economy and the society. I'll be darned if we're going to let some lowest common denominator suck us back in.
Yes, just a quick follow-up. The pension.
Good evening from Las Vegas, Manchester, Washington. Why should your judgment be valued?
I'd stake my judgment against anyone out there.
Is party unity your concern right now, or is simply winning as many states as you as both?
NBC Nightly News with Lester Holt.
If it's digging in on the issues,
Let's talk about money and politics.
if it's asking the questions you want to ask, how do you reassure those supporters that you will sustain this?
Just watch me.
If it's navigating the winding road to the White House, and if it's Sunday, it's Meet the Press.
The coronavirus outbreak. What's next? NBC News has in-depth coverage, answers to your questions, insight from medical experts, and up-to-the-minute live blog updates. For continuing coverage, turn to the networks and platforms of NBC News.
Healthcare workers, as Gabe just mentioned, they're facing a real shortage of personal protective equipment, PPE. We've heard about the pleas for donations, especially for those N95 face masks. Well, now there's an Ohio-based research company, it's called Battelle. They've developed a system that they say can decontaminate those masks and allow hospitals to reuse them. The Food and Drug Administration recently approved the process. I'm joined now exclusively to tell us all about this new technology by Battelle's president and CEO, Louis Von Fair. Good morning to you, Lou. Thanks for being with us this morning. The critical care decontamination system, as you guys call it. In the simplest of terms, how does this thing work?
Sure. Craig, thank you, and good morning. Thank you for having me today. First, I'd like to give a quick shout out to the team at Battelle. We've been on a war footing for the last couple months, and people are working around the clock. I couldn't be more proud of them. The company's mission is to advance science and technology for societal benefit, and we have the best chance now to do that and make a difference. So the system we've built basically takes the ISO containers, the trucks that you see going down the highway. We outfit them, put sensors inside, and the racks of masks. We bring the mask in, we hook them up then to a hose that will put vaporized hydrogen peroxide at a slight pressure, and bathe those masks in that for about 2.5 hours. After that time, those masks are clean. We then have to outgas for about several hours, and then we can take the masks back. We'll ship them back to the same hospitals. This technology we worked on with the FDA 5 years ago and proved it could be done. We just never thought about scaling it before. The most important part of this is...
They sterilizing the mask. They were using the mask, Lana.
So our team's working this around the clock. We worked very closely with the FDA. We got approval at 9 o'clock last night.
They sterilizing the mask.
And yesterday we started cleaning our first mask. Our partners, Ohio Health, here in Central Ohio, has helped us work logistics chains on how to mark the masks and make sure the right masks go back to the right hospitals. And we're in the process of starting to deploy systems around the country to make a difference.
How many masks can you do in a day, Lou?
So each one of these systems, a full system, can do up to 80,000 masks in a day. We do that, we can do 10,000 masks in one of those containers I just mentioned. We have 4 of those that tie to a system, and we will run multiple shifts. We'll literally work this around the clock to meet the need of the nation.
And yesterday in Ohio, as I understand it, today you set up shop in New York, specifically Long Island. Where else do you guys plan on deploying over the next few days?
So over the next few days and weeks, we're going to try to put a second system in New York. We're looking for locations with the city health leaders to do that. We're looking at Boston, Chicago, and probably Washington, D.C. We are then going to be getting more parts over the coming weeks to be able to build more systems and deploy them as well.
And this is personal for you, as I understand it as well.
It certainly is. My daughter's a doctor in Atlanta, an anesthesiologist, and she's told me of the trade-offs they've had to make in the rationing of supplies. I've got a niece who is a nurse in Kansas, and we're working with the health officials here too. So for all of you on the front lines, everyone who's delivering our food, taking care of us, first responders, but especially those in our hospitals. If we can help make them a little bit more safe and get back to being able to use clean masks with each patient each day, I think we'll feel like we've done a small part to help fix this.
80,000 masks a day. Really, the technology, it sounds amazing. Keep us posted. Again, Battelle President and CEO Louis Von Thayer. Louis, thank you.
In a world changed by coronavirus, this is the safest way Margarita Aviles can spend time with her husband of 55 years, who's in a nursing home near Chicago.
I don't want to cry, Carol. I cry.
And it's not just nursing homes. Across the country, elderly Americans are encouraged to isolate themselves and keep away from places and people that might spread the virus. But health experts say that comes at a cost. According to an article in medical journal The Lancet, it puts older Americans at greater risk of depression and anxiety.
Watch for their signs if they're not talking to you as much as they did before, if they're not as chatty.
Dr. Neha Vias is with the Cleveland Clinic and says it's more important than ever to reach out to the seniors in your life. Watch for potential warning signs if they say they're having trouble sleeping or eating. You notice they're having low energy or neglecting their physical care, and they're feeling hopeless.
Make sure you connect with them daily, maybe twice a day, over the phone or virtually through a platform where you can see their faces.
Some nursing homes are working to get tablets to residents, and communities are finding ways to reach out safely. Like this Humps for Hugs parade at a senior living facility in Cleveland.
It's true. I got 4 cards of my family went through today. And I was in that woman, and I was crying.
A show of love to seniors separated by a pandemic. Sarah Dolph, NBC News.
Car after car pulled into the river at Tampa Bay Church parking lot tonight. Church leaders kept their doors open for worship after Hillsborough County deputies contacted them regarding the large crowd at the Sunday morning service. Pastor Ronnie Howard Brown defended that decision in a Facebook Live post titled End of Days Part 3.
So I'm not, again, negating that people are dying from the coronavirus. We're not saying that. We're just saying that the thing is blown totally way out of proportion. And if you shut the church down, the church is not a non-essential service.
In a statement to the press from March 18, the church posted it will do everything in our power to support the efforts of our wider community by cleaning and sanitizing services and take any other recommended measures to protect our people and keep them healthy and safe. Here at the road leading to the church, deputies have put up this sign that says, practice social distancing, stay 6 feet apart, maximum 10 people per room. Tonight the sheriff's office says it has advised church leaders of the danger they are putting themselves and their congregation in by not maintaining appropriate social distancing at a time when COVID-19 cases are unfortunately still on the rise in Hillsborough County.
Our outreach is to the whole world.
Vicki Walker is the Minister of Missions and Outreach at Hyde Park United Methodist. Her church is one of many religious institutions holding prayer services online during the pandemic.
God gave us brains and we're invited to use them, and it's an act of faith and good conscience for Christians to worship together online, not in public.
There is a movement underway at Mabel Bassett Correctional Center in McLeod.
Trying to make sure that our families are safe.
The inmates here
It's easily preventable.
are answering
We had it on the minutes the other night.
a national cry for help.
It's sad it takes something like this to bring everyone together, but it's beautiful when you see it happen.
The Warriors Quilting Club is a team of women who share a love of sewing.
These ladies are great at what they do. They're great at sewing, they're great at putting stuff together, they work well as a team. And we have all this here, and we decided we needed to step up and help.
In the midst of this pandemic,
When it's made with your hands and made with love, it goes a long ways. We're gonna keep cutting until we run out of material.
these women are using their sewing skills to help first responders in need.
We can't imagine what they're gonna look like when we get done with them.
Hobby Lobby donated mountains of fabric.
Oh man, I don't know. We got a lot of material, so as many as they will make, probably thousands, I'm sure.
These women were excited to contribute their time and their talent.
It means a lot to me to be able to give back to the community and to make a difference and to show that we are more than just a number, and that we actually do care about the community and that we can give back.
Some of the inmates pray over their work, stitching in a layer of supernatural protection from an invisible enemy.
I absolutely literally pray over them while I'm working on it. Prayer is a very big part of my life. This is a duty and this is a service and a way for us to give back. So that's one of the things that makes it terribly important.
Stick together and come together as a community, and I think we'll make it through.
We will make it through, thanks in part to this tailor-made solution. Inmates serving hard time and serving others during hard times. Allie Meyer, Oklahoma's News 4. And serving others during hard times. Allie Meyer.
As of last week, all Peace Corps volunteers were evacuated from their posts and sent home to the U.S. with orders to self-quarantine. NBC's Maura Barrett and Julia Jester spoke to a dozen Peace Corps volunteers about what it's like to suddenly be back in an America they don't recognize.
As our daily routines face disruption due to this confusion with the coronavirus pandemic, life is especially uncertain for returning Peace Corps volunteers.
The Peace Corps evacuated 7,000 volunteers from more than 60 countries, suspending the program for the first time in its history.
As of Tuesday, March 24th, all evacuees were returned safely home to the U.S.
So we wanted to talk to some of those volunteers about what it was like to return so suddenly to an America they didn't recognize.
Turned my phone off of airplane mode, and it just went like ding 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 because we'd gotten the email that Peace Corps was evacuating worldwide, and it just said, "You're being evacuated."
Although it's a bad situation, I feel that the Peace Corps, at least for Peace Corps Uganda, the staff, they handled the situation as best as they could. Flights started getting canceled, borders started getting shut, and so they just started pushing everybody through as quickly as possible.
We didn't go back to normal U.S. life, so nothing feels normal.
It's difficult because we didn't just lose our job, we also just lost our home, and we lost our community. And some people, they were so close that, it felt like family was being ripped away from them.
What would you like to see the Peace Corps do to help support the evacuated volunteers?
I don't think that 3 therapy sessions is enough, especially since this has been a pretty traumatic experience.
We're not eligible for unemployment because we're volunteers, and so I think the exact word is that the nature of our relationship does not rise to that of an employee